Hello, hello, it's Howard Gearhauser alongside my dad, Dr. G. In today's video, we're going to give you some helpful tips on how you can overcome allergies or hay fever naturally. So allergies are right around the corner. I know a lot of us struggle with them, so we want to give you some practical advice on what you can do. So Dad, can you explain a little bit more about what's going on here?
Yeah, so the hay fever, allergic rhinitis, where we get the runny nose and itchy nose and watery eyes and itchy throat. This is a really common scenario, and over time, this disorder has been increasing. And you go to the doctor, and typically they want to give you, have you take a lot of times chronically. I have some doctor friends that take antihistamines every day of their whole life, year round, because they get some allergy symptoms. So the antihistamines are big. When it's really bad, they sometimes add in their decongestants. Trouble with antihistamines, the older antihistamines cause drowsiness, the non-drowsy antihistamines, and the older ones can impair cognitive ability, which most of us don't want that, our brain not working as well. And that's because the antihistamines have anticholinergic side effects. So the acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter that's really important. And in people with neurodegeneration, Alzheimer's, those levels go down. So it's felt that these anticholinergic side effect drugs like antihistamines are a problem. And then there's the nasal steroids. Steroids aren't good. They reduce our barrier mechanisms, like our mucosa in our nose and around our eyes and in our throat has a barrier mechanism that keeps the germs out and keeps healthy things in, and that barrier can break down with the chronic use of like the Flonase or the steroids that you spray in your nose. They are effective because they kind of kill your immune system, but what we would rather do is get to the root cause of why it's happening.
Exactly, and that's something we always try and focus on. If we can get to the root cause, then the symptoms tend to go away and stay away as long as you're maintaining those protocols that you use to help address the root cause. So in this case, what is the root cause? What are some practical steps that we can take to address it?
Well, the root cause is quite complex. So there's so many factors, and that's why doctors don't deal with the root causes. We don't know the root cause, but there's lots of factors that suggest what the root causes might be. And a lot of them are connected to the mechanisms of nature. So it's kind of common sense. Well, maybe we should do this. As an example, it's found that when people like move from the country, like if you lived on a farm, you have way less allergic rhinitis, even though maybe you're exposed to more pollens and molds. And pollens are kind of the big thing that cause allergic rhinitis, and mold is another one. Another one that's inside your house is dust mites. So those are kind of the big three, but there's a lot of things that can create the symptoms of allergic rhinitis. But people that move from a farm to the city, the risk of having allergic rhinitis goes way up. Now, we can speculate all day. One of the theories out there is that, okay, well, the farmer is getting exposed to all this pollen, so his body tolerates it because of the exposure. And they found that in kids. Kids that are exposed to things when they're young are less likely to have a reaction to it when they get older. But there's, of course, a lot of other things that happen when you leave the farm and go to the city. Now you're exposed to the non-native electromagnetic fields, which affect everything within our body. Remember, these are waves that are foreign to our body and waves in our system. This is how our system communicates with waves. So these foreign waves create problems. We know they have a multitude of biologic effects. And of course, allergies might be one of them. So that would be one of the first things I would think about with someone that say has severe allergy symptoms. Now, allergy symptoms are going up. It's anywhere from 30 to 40% of the population, has hay fever during some point in the year. I mean, it's almost becoming the new normal. Now, one of the things that we harp on, like I'm in the sun right now, this is something we believe is so important for your circadian rhythm. A lot of studies now showing the circadian rhythm is what controls our immune system. The clock mechanism inside the immune cells, it's been worked out. The studies are there. You can look them up, and they are highly detailed, so they don't have much meaning for a layperson because there are all these little mechanisms of the way cells work. But if your circadian clock is off, and so someone who moves to the big city exposed to more light at night and maybe less sunlight because the building next door is blocking your sunshine, these are going to affect your circadian rhythm. So there's a huge link to circadian mechanisms and allergies.
So one common thing that might be thought is if I'm having these allergies, it's coming from being outside. So maybe the thought process is I shouldn't be outside as much. Is that something that you see with your patients? I know with our health coaching clients, that's sometimes a topic that's brought up. Well, I've been outside so much, that's why my allergies are flaring up. How do we make sense of that?
Yeah, and that's a common recommendation by an allergist is, hey, don't go outside or don't go outside at certain times of the day because of the pollen count. And, don't breathe any of the air from the outside. Make sure you're breathing only inside air. Well, inside air is much more polluted than outside air because of all the things that you have in your house, all the plastic things, all the painted structures, all the processed or manufactured items in your house, all off gas toxins. So the inside of the house is very toxic. So you want to have the windows open and breathe the air. So it's kind of a catch-22. I might be aging myself by saying catch-22, but catch-22 goes back a long time, I think to World War II. But a catch-22 is that, it doesn't make sense. You go inside and breathe a bunch of toxins, to heal your problem. That might get worse with toxins. So it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that humans weren't meant to be outside in the pollen. So the circadian mechanism is one. Sun exposure is another. Sun actually breaks down histamine. Histamine is the amino acid that's part of what triggers the mast cells, which is part of this response in allergies. And so sunlight actually breaks down histamine. So sunlight might be a way to decrease your allergic symptoms, even though I often get complaints from patients, say, oh, the sun, I'm allergic to the sun. I've heard that many times. But I again, think that's a fallacy, that you're not really allergic to the sun. And there's studies showing a definite, strong correlation to people with low vitamin D levels and having much higher risk of having allergic rhinitis. So sun is a surrogate of how much sun you're getting, because the sunlight, of course, stimulates the formation of vitamin D. And of course, we can also get vitamin D in pills, but vitamin D from pills, they've done dozens of randomized clinical trials of vitamin D in pills, and it doesn't help all those health conditions that seem to be associated with low vitamin D. So vitamin D pills, I don't think is the answer. So we know that sun sets our circadian rhythm. We know that sun makes vitamin D. We know that the sun breaks down histamine. We know that the frequencies for the sun are loaded onto our hemoglobin and delivered to our body. So I think the sun is a key thing that will help prevent, and we find this in our health coaching clients. We get those people with severe allergies gradually get their circadian rhythm fixed, get the setting of their circadian clock in the morning. the spectrum of light throughout the day, and they improve. And the research is now showing, yeah, low vitamin D, much higher allergies. Vitamin D orchestrates a lot of the mechanism of the immune system.
So we have getting your circadian rhythm dialed in. We have a whole video on that, so make sure to go check that one out after this. We also have the sun exposure. So go check out that video too, where we explain exactly when you should be outside, for how long, and what's going on within your body that's making the sun exposure so important. What else should we be doing to limit the effects of these allergies?
Okay, to just kind of pile on to the light issue, there's other issues related to light that might be helpful. There's been some studies out there that show that the photobiomodulation, that's using the red and infrared, the red lamps, they're used for wrinkles, they're used for hair loss, they work for allergies. So having a red light, it's called photobiomodulation or low-level light therapy, is where you sit in front of a red light anywhere from 3 minutes to 20 minutes. It increases the energy in your cells, so it improves the function of the immune system cells. So light therapy is another way to go, and we can recommend a certain product that we use. It's kind of an expensive light, but not all lights are created equal. Some don't have enough power to do anything. Others have a thing called flicker. So flicker is where the light flickers. It's not perceptible to your mind, but it flickers, and that could be a problem. So we don't want red lights that flicker. And so LED lights will often flicker at 120 times per second. So you don't notice it consciously, but it's a problem. So you want to get a light where the flicker has been modulated out of it. And so the one we recommend is one of those. The other thing about light, though, is that the organisms inside of us called the microbiome in our gut. We have microbiomes in our eye, in our mouth, in our ears, but we also have a microbiome of trillions of organisms in our gut. And bacteria give off way more light than our cells. Now, we haven't talked much about this, but our cells emit light. They emit extremely low frequency ultraviolet light, which if you ask a doctor, they won't even know that, but it's proven. There's a way to measure light at a very small level with a machine called a photomultiplier. So it's proven we emit light, and you actually emit more light when you're unhealthy versus if you're healthy, you kind of contain your light better, although you still emit it. But bacteria, like in our gut, emit way more light. Well, that light from a diverse, healthy microbiome in our gut, that light programs the immune system in our intestinal tract. And the biggest immune organ in your body is the gut-associated lymphatic tissue. It's called GALT. So the GALT is our biggest immune organ, and it's in our gut. And it is modulated by the light given off by the bacteria in your gut. So you can see light is such a huge picture for health. Now, the studies are out there, numerous studies showing that if you improve the diversity of your microbiome, your allergy symptoms get better. And they even now give probiotics, and it can decrease allergy symptoms. Some of the lactobacillus probiotics, those are also found in things like yogurt and kefir. So the gut microbiome is another key component of our immune system, probably a key issue with the underlying cause. So think if you live on a farm, you're exposed to more bacteria, you have a more diverse microbiome. In fact, they've studied that. Kids that live on a farm have a much more diverse microbiome in their gut, and so do adults, than people who live in the city. So that's another reason why your allergies get worse, your circadian rhythm, your gut microbiome, not getting enough sunlight. Those all could correlate to why people, when they go to the city, their allergies get worse, even though there's less plants.
And this kind of goes back to our recommendation that's congruent throughout all of our videos and everything that we share is add more nature. It might seem like, oh, I have allergies, let's do less nature, but no, add more. You need to get outside more. You need to get more sun exposure. You need to get grounded. Go watch that video, 10 cutting edge protocols that your doctor will never tell you. That's going to break down even more things you can do. Chances are that your allergies are coming from the fact that you're not connected to nature. You know, you're living in the big city and you're totally disconnected. Well, now your allergies flare up. So take that into consideration. Kind of think of this from a common sense standpoint. Were allergies prevalent before kind of our modern Western society?
Yeah, I mean, that's, I don't know. You know, I don't know if that's been studied, so I haven't searched that. So I don't know. But recently, it's going up. It's not going up dramatically, but it's going up every year, a little bit every year. So now it's, you know, getting close to half the population is affected. Now there's other things that can be done. One is a mechanical thing of flushing your sinuses and throat with saline. There's a device called a neti pot. So this is a non-toxic way to get some of those allergens out of your sinuses so that you can reduce your symptoms. Because I know, you know, if you're having miserable symptoms, you don't want to hear, oh, go out in the sun or go out in the hayfield and roll around. You know, you don't want to hear that. You want to reduce your symptoms. So there are some natural things that reduce it. One is quercetin. So quercetin is a plant compound. It's found in onions and wine and different plant compounds. And it's called a flavanol class. And it has pretty strong antihistamine effects without the side effects of antihistamine. So quercetin. Vitamin C is another one. Life Extension has a product that's vitamin C plus bioquercetin. So it combines those two together. Metagenics, which is a supplement maker that I use in my practice, they have a product called Sinuplex. It has quercetin. It also has nettle root. Nettle root also has been shown to help allergies. Also has N-acetylcysteine. So N-acetylcysteine is an amino acid, is a precursor to glutathione. So glutathione's our master antioxidant, and supplementing with N-acetylcysteine will trigger more of that glutathione, or will produce more of the glutathione. So you have this antioxidant, anti-inflammatory effect of N-acetylcysteine. And they also have bromelain. Bromelain is an enzyme that's found in pineapples. And so bromelain is thought to help break down those thickened mucus membranes. And then there's butterbur, which is an herb. That one, the science is mixed. So and there are some possible dangers with that one, but that's one that's recommended a lot. So there are some natural things besides the drugs. So the steroid drugs are a bad idea to do chronically 24/7, 365. It's a bad idea. They break down the barriers in the tissues within your sinuses and throat. And that is not good. The antihistamines, a bad thing to do long-term because it can have effects on your cognition, which you don't want to have. Now, allergists do immunotherapy, and that can work, but it's still ignoring the cause. So immunotherapy is where they inject you with the antigen that causes your allergy, but they start with a tiny, tiny dose. Now, there may be a natural way to do that same thing, and that's eating raw honey that's local to your environment. So you think of a bee collecting all those pollens, and then the antigens from the pollen get in the honey. So if you eat raw honey from your local environment, it might be a way to do immunotherapy where you're having a really low dose, so you gradually desensitize your body to that antigen. And there are actually a couple of studies showing that. One was with birch pollen. They took honey from bees who got their pollen from the birch trees in this one area. Then they had people that were allergic to the birch pollen, and they ate the raw honey and their symptoms got better, not doing anything else different than the control group. So it looks like that may be another one of nature's ways to help you with allergies. And another one that's good is stinging nettle root. So you get an extract of the stinging nettle root that has antihistaminic properties, and it reduces allergic rhinitis symptoms.
So there's a lot of suggestions there to go away from the drugs. Now, if you need to use the drugs because your symptoms are just unbearable, just have the plan to start incorporating these things as quickly as possible. That way you can do this from more of a preventive standpoint and not wait until your symptoms are so bad that you're forced into using the drugs. Also give these natural remedies a shot because they might work well. But even the natural remedies, we'd like to avoid the allergies altogether. So getting down to the getting back to nature and those 10 protocols that we talked so much about is going to be your long-term solution. Those natural remedies are a good short-term solution. And then the drugs, that should be like a backs against the wall. Your symptoms are so bad that you're going to use it very carefully, but not relying on it long-term, because my dad mentioned there's a ton of side effects whenever you use these drugs. They complicate our very complex system. Is there anything you wanted to add before we sign off?
No, I think that this is something that is highly preventable, and it just takes, doing what we suggest, getting much closer to nature and guarding yourself against a lot of things in our modern environment that we believe are the root cause for why our body dysfunctions. And dysfunction of the immune system is one of the key areas that is dysfunctional when we live the modern techno life.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. Make sure to go check out all of our other videos. We have so much content that we've put out already this year. Again, this is completely free. This is our best stuff. Make sure you've subscribed to this channel if you're on YouTube, and that you're following our fan page, Quantum Possibility. Go check out our Instagram too. We have just tons of content that we're really here to serve you guys. So we appreciate you tuning in, and we will see you on the next episode. Thanks, Dad.
Okay.